So, hello. It's really refreshing to be here. My usual work has to do with extremism and prevention of radicalization. So, it's wonderful to be among normal crime. Kind of, you know. But having said that, one of the basics of the work we have been doing at the Finnish Institute of Health and Welfare is with the assumption that has been said here many, many times over, victims become perpetrators and vice versa. And it is impossible to separate different types of crime or violence because it's kind of like a meshed heap of things that people engage in. And usually if you prevent one, you might prevent something else. Now this, to some, might be violence. But in Finland, as you know, the moment sea freezes over, this is what you do, you dip in. I've used this picture many times when talking about extremism, and they always kind of seem to think in international settings that Finns might be particularly vulnerable to extremist behavior. Well, talking about identity, the first thing I want to talk about, my background is in social psychology, which you can probably tell from the things that I'm going to say. First of all, what motivates us? So what causes, what intrinsic, so like stemming from the individual, what is it that gets us going? First of all of us have a deep need of autonomy. Do you know 2-year-olds? I'm going to dress myself. And then half an hour later, you're still there with the sock or the whatever. So we're born with this need for autonomy. And a sense of freedom. So the feeling of hating to be told what to do can be detected early on, and it doesn't change if you look at it. So autonomy and protection of autonomy motivates us. The second, I'll do the other way round and talk first about competence and influence. There's a strong need of agency. I need to know I am capable, I can do this. We all have experiences of people showcasing what they've done, and sometimes we're very, very polite and smile while we're thinking, oh, for goodness sake. But still, all of us recognize the fact that we need to know that we are competent in doing something. I'm capable, and tied to this, other people recognize my capacity. Other people recognize my competence. And I can influence things. I can push things. So there is a delight when you, for instance, have you ever done, you know that you can do with dominoes? You pile and pile and pile, and then the moment you go this boop, and the whole thing falls. There's something so satisfying in that I did this, I caused all of this to fall. And so there is kind of a delight in causing things to explode or in making somebody really angry because like I did it, So there is this inherent need of competence. And the third and most important, which will then lead me, is the sense of belonging, which will lead me to talking about social identity. So belonging, the need to be part of something where you're valued and where you're connected is so strong that if nothing else is available, I will join any mafia, any other group. I lived in Italy, hence mafia. I was not part of it, have to say. It will push you to be connected with anything. We had a very, very, very sad case in Finland where a young boy was murdered by his friends. And you would think, like, why would you hang out with people who torture you? But if there's nobody else? Why do you stay in a marriage where you get battered day in and day out? Well, if there's nobody else. So the need to belong is so strong that it can motivate us to do all sorts of things we shouldn't do. Identity blocks, when you're a young person, these are the 3 main questions you are asking with all of your being. All of your behavior, whatever else you do, these are the questions that beg the answer. And where do you look for the answer? Well, if you talk about personal identity, we often think in the West, in our inherently individualistic, idiotic bias, that the answer is I, me, and myself. No man is an island, said John Donne. And whatever diminishes you diminishes me, because we're all one. And so, therefore, actually the answer to all these three questions is found in social relationships. So social identity tells you when you belong to something, how that group is like in comparison to other groups. What then if you happen to be a member of a vulnerable local group? So you are already excluded. You're already not part of the gang. You're already, for some reason, not really as good as everybody else, or not as good as what the promise is. In Finnish education, we have this delightfully childish assumption that if only you study, you'll get a job, you'll get ahead in life. Well, it might be true for some people, but it's not true for everybody. And so you are betrayed. The promise doesn't apply to you because you belong to whatever group. And this breeds grievances. Now, if this was an extremist thingy conference, I would then go on talking about from grievances to social unrest to terrorism, etc. But I won't. So I'll spare you that. But grievances is a thing where we as professionals or authorities absolutely need to do something about. Because the sense of belonging to our society requires a whole of society approach so that we affirm that everybody can be part of us. Social identity is born of the conviction that there is my group and then there is the other group. This doesn't have to be polarized, this doesn't have to be warlike, but it will be if no other means of comparison is offered. Social identity is based on something that makes me proud. So I'm proud to be, I don't know, a Hanasari person for today. And it makes me happy. We all need a group identity that makes us happy. So as professionals or as authorities, we need to make sure we convey this also to all kinds of other groups. Sometimes we forget that all work is relational and we compete with other professionals. And we say, well, you know, the police, they are like that. Or the social workers, they are like that. And we treat them as if they would be the outgroup. But as authorities and as professionals, we are all the in-group. It is our task to promote the well-being of citizens in general. We, coming from the social and healthcare sector, we are bound by two ethical principles: do no harm and duty of care. And those two principles inform what we do and what we should do at any given time. To be kind is something which is never wasted. You need to be kind, not just to your colleagues, but also to those really irritating, coming from another office kind of people, if you want to have something of lasting value happen. And like we heard before, one of the most surprising things is when people who don't expect to be treated with kindness actually are. We had this interview when we were doing this online training course for prevention of extremism, where a former guy said the one thing that really surprised him was because he was always labeled as the troublemaker by social services, by the police, by anyone. And then when somebody treated him with kindness and respect, he was like, what? And so kindness can unlock things that would never, ever, ever be unlocked by repression or any other means. So be kind. Social impact, we already heard of that. Don't do things that really muck things up. And you have to evaluate. It is like, in order to be social sustainable, you have to come up with solutions that make violence less probable and not more probable. Because the goal is to create attractive alternatives. If you're a young person and your family doesn't have any money, and you know that by selling whatever it is you can sell, you can make money for your family, you will. Anyone would. If you have to eat, you'll do whatever it takes in order to eat. So we, as professionals, as the authorities, are responsible for creating realistic alternatives to violence. So what do people need? We need democracy. Democracy means that we have a rule of law. People are treated equally and fairly. They are not on purpose made to feel all kinds of grievances. People do need a community. We need to make building of communities easier, not harder, and we need to provide people with work. This quote is from the Davos Forum. Fair and equitable work is never more important than in times of uncertainty, which we are now living. A sustainable job provides people with a source of security, financial stability, and sense of community, which is what we need. I actually don't need my 2 minutes because I had timed myself within 5 seconds of my timer. Yeah. So thank you.